Daniel Moore was alone in space when everything went wrong. He was a survey pilot for the Human Federation. His job was simple. He flew to new systems, took readings, and reported back. He had done this job for 8 years. He was good at it. He knew how to stay out of trouble. But today, trouble found him. His small ship was passing through an uncharted system when the first alarm went off. Then the second. Then all of them at once. A cloud of debris, rocks, and broken metal from some ancient collision was right in front of him. He had no time to turn. He could only try to fly through it. The first rock hit his left engine. The second took out his communication array. The third cracked his cockpit window. Daniel fought with the controls as his ship began to spin. Red lights flashed everywhere. Smoke filled the cabin. Through the cracked window, he could see a moon growing larger and larger. It was covered in purple forests. It was beautiful. It was also going to kill him if he did not do something fast. He pulled hard on the controls. The ship did not want to respond. It was dying, and it wanted to take him with it. But Daniel was stubborn. He had survived bad situations before. He was not ready to die in a place he did not even have a name for. The ship broke through the atmosphere. Fire surrounded him. The heat was terrible. Daniel held on and kept fighting. He managed to angle the nose up just enough. Instead of hitting the ground straight on, the ship would slide. It would still crash, but he might live. The purple trees came up fast. His ship tore through them like paper. Branches broke against the hull. The noise was louder than anything Daniel had ever heard. Then the ship hit the ground and everything went dark. When Daniel opened his eyes, he was still in his seat. His safety straps had held. His body hurt everywhere, but he could move his arms and legs. That was good. Nothing was broken. He released the straps and fell forward. The ship was tilted at a bad angle. He crawled toward the emergency hatch and pushed it open. Fresh air rushed in. It smelled strange, like flowers and copper, but it was breathable. Daniel pulled himself out of the ship and dropped to the ground. He lay there for a moment, just breathing, just being alive. Above him, the sky was a pale green color. 2 suns hung in the distance, one large and orange, one small and white. He stood up slowly and looked at his ship. It was destroyed. The hull was cracked in a dozen places. One engine was completely gone. The other was on fire. He grabbed his emergency kit from just inside the hatch and moved away before something exploded. When he was at a safe distance, he sat down and opened the kit. He had food for 3 days, water for 2, a medical pack, a knife, a small tool set, and a distress beacon that was supposed to call for help. He tried the beacon. It flickered once and then died. The damage from the debris cloud had broken it. Daniel looked at the beacon for a long time. Then he put it down and picked up the tool set. He could fix it. He had fixed worse things before, but it would take time. Hours, maybe a full day. He started working. As he worked, he tried to remember what he knew about this system. It was on the edge of Vrethani space. The Vrethani were not friendly to outsiders. They were tall, strong, covered in silver-blue fur, and they did not like other species coming near their territory. But there was something else, something worse. Daniel tried to remember his briefing from months ago. What had the instructor said about the Vrethani and their moons? Then it came back to him and his blood went cold. The Vrethani used certain moons as breeding grounds, sacred places where they raised their young. No outsider was allowed anywhere near these places. The punishment for entering a breeding ground was death, not arrest, not prison, death. The Vrethani did not negotiate about this. They did not make exceptions. Any outsider found near their cubs was killed on sight. Daniel looked around at the purple forest. He had no way of knowing if this was one of those moons. But deep in his gut, he felt that it was. His luck had been bad today. Why would it get better now? He worked faster on the beacon. The first sun was setting when he heard the sound. It was soft at first, almost lost in the alien bird calls and the rustle of leaves. But it grew louder. It was a cry, high and weak, like something small was in pain. Daniel stopped working. He told himself to ignore it. He told himself that he was already in enough trouble. He told himself that the smart thing to do was stay with the ship, fix the beacon, and wait for rescue. The cry came again. It was worse this time, more desperate. Daniel closed his eyes. He thought about his mother back on Earth. She had raised him alone after his father left. She had worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table. She had taught him one thing above all else. She had said it so many times that he could hear her voice in his head right now. You help those who need help. It does not matter who they are. It does not matter what it costs you. You help them because it is right. Daniel opened his eyes. He put down his tools. He picked up his knife and his medical kit. Then he walked into the forest. The purple trees were massive, taller than any trees on Earth. Their trunks were wide enough to build houses inside. The ground was covered in soft moss that glowed faintly in the fading light. Strange insects flew past him, their wings making musical sounds. The crying led him deeper into the forest. He moved carefully, watching for danger. But he did not stop. He could not stop. That sound was pulling him forward like a rope tied around his heart. He found the source in a small clearing. A fallen branch, thick and heavy, lay across the ground. Trapped beneath it was a small creature. It was about the size of a house cat. Its fur was silver blue, just like the Vrithani warriors in the briefing videos. Its eyes were large and golden, filled with pain and fear. One of its back legs was bent in a way that made Daniel's stomach turn. It was a Vrithani cub, a child of the most protective species in the galaxy, and it was looking right at him. Daniel stood at the edge of the clearing. He knew what this meant. If he helped this cub, the Vrithani would find him. They would not care that he meant no harm. They would not care that he was trying to help. Their law was absolute. He would die. The cub cried again. The sound was so small, so helpless, so full of pain. Daniel walked forward and knelt beside it. Some things mattered more than survival. Daniel knelt in the soft moss beside the trapped cub. Up close, he could see that it was even smaller than he first thought. Its body was thin, almost fragile. Its silver blue fur was matted with dirt and dried blood. The golden eyes that stared up at him were wide with fear, but also with something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the desperate wish that someone, anyone, would make the pain stop. The branch that pinned the cub was thick and heavy. Daniel tested its weight. He could move it, but he would have to be careful. If he lifted it wrong, he might hurt the cub even more. He spoke softly. He did not know if the cub could understand him, but he wanted it to hear his voice before he touched it. His mother had taught him that too. Animals, children, anyone in pain. They needed to know you meant no harm before you put your hands on them. Easy now, Daniel said. I am going to help you. I am not going to hurt you. Just stay still, okay? Stay very still. The cub stopped crying, its golden eyes fixed on his face. It was listening. Daniel moved slowly to the end of the branch. He got his hands under it and began to lift. The wood was heavier than it looked. His arms shook with the effort. But he kept lifting until there was enough space for the cub to move. Come on, he said. Slide out, you can do it. The cub tried to move. It pulled with its front legs, dragging its body forward. The broken back leg trailed behind it, useless. The cub made a small sound of pain but kept going. It was brave, Daniel thought, braver than many grown beings he had known. The cub pulled itself free. Daniel lowered the branch and moved to its side. The broken leg was bad. The bone was not sticking out, which was good, but the angle was wrong. The leg would never heal right on its own. Daniel opened his medical kit. He had bandages, pain medicine, and a small bottle of something that would clean wounds. He also had 2 metal rods that were meant for human fingers. They would work as a splint for the cub's leg. He looked at the cub. It was watching him with those big golden eyes. It had not tried to bite him or run away. It just lay there, trusting him. That trust felt like a weight on Daniel's chest. He could not let this small creature down. This is going to hurt, he said. I am sorry. I have to set the bone. I will be as gentle as I can. He took a small cloth from his kit and soaked it in the pain medicine. He pressed it against the cub's nose. The cub sniffed it once, twice, and then its eyes began to close. Not all the way, but enough. The medicine would take the edge off. Daniel worked fast. He took the broken leg in his hands and felt for the bone. Then, in one quick motion, he pulled and twisted. The bone slid back into place. The cub made a sharp cry, but the medicine kept it from thrashing. Daniel grabbed the metal rods and pressed them against either side of the leg. He wrapped them tight with bandages, creating a splint that would hold the bone straight while it healed. When he was done, he sat back and wiped the sweat from his face. The cub lay still, breathing hard. Its golden eyes opened and found his face. Then it made a sound that Daniel did not expect. A soft chirp, like a bird, but warmer. It was not a cry of pain. It was something else. Thanks, maybe? Or trust. The cub pushed its small head against Daniel's palm and chirped again. Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. Not a bad feeling. Just an old wall breaking down. He had been alone for so long. 8 years of flying through empty space. 8 years of talking to no one but himself. And now this small creature was looking at him like he was the most important person in the universe. He picked up the cub gently. It weighed almost nothing. He held it against his chest and stood up. "Come on," he said. "Let us get you somewhere safe." He carried the cub back through the purple forest. The second sun had set now, and the only light came from the glowing moss and the strange insects that flew through the trees. It was beautiful, Daniel thought. Deadly and forbidden, but beautiful. His ship was still smoking when he reached it. The fire in the engine had burned out, leaving black marks on the metal. Daniel carried the cub inside through the emergency hatch. The ship was tilted, but there was a flat spot near the back where he could set up a small camp. He laid the cub down on a pile of emergency blankets. It chirped at him as he moved away, and he smiled. "I am not leaving," he said. "I am just getting water." He filled a small cup from his water supply and held it to the cub's mouth. The cub sniffed it, then began to drink. It was thirsty, Daniel realized. It must have been trapped under that branch for a long time. When the cub finished drinking, Daniel gave it a small piece of food from his rations. The cub ate it quickly and looked at him for more. Daniel laughed and gave it another piece. He knew he should save his food, but he could not say no to those golden eyes. The night passed slowly. Daniel sat beside the cub, watching it sleep. He thought about what would happen when the Vrathani came. They would come. He was sure of that. They would find his crashed ship, they would find him, and when they saw their cub in his arms, they would kill him. He tried to think of a way out. Maybe he could leave the cub here and hide in the forest. Maybe he could explain that he was only trying to help. Maybe they would listen, but he knew they would not. The briefing had been clear. The Vrathani did not care about reasons. They did not care about good intentions. Their law was simple. Outsiders who touched their young died. Daniel looked at the sleeping cub. Its small chest rose and fell with each breath. Its broken leg was wrapped tight in his bandages. In sleep, it looked peaceful. Safe. He made a decision then. He would not leave it. He would not hide. He would stay right here with the cub and face whatever came. If he was going to die, he would die knowing he did the right thing. The cub shifted in its sleep. It made a small sound and pressed closer to Daniel's leg. He reached down and stroked its soft fur. "It is okay," he whispered. "I am here. I am not going anywhere." The green sky grew lighter as the first sun rose. Daniel had not slept. He was tired, but he could not close his eyes. Every sound from the forest made him tense. Every rustle of leaves made him look toward the hatch. The cub woke with the sun. It stretched its front legs and yawned, showing small white teeth. Then it looked up at Daniel and chirped. "Good morning," he said. "How is your leg?" The cub tried to stand. It wobbled, putting weight on only 3 legs, but it did not fall. It took a few steps toward Daniel and pressed its head against his hand. Daniel smiled. "You're tough, little one. Tougher than me, probably." He gave the cub more water and more food. He checked the splint and saw that it was holding well. The leg would heal, he thought. Given enough time, the cub would walk and run again. But time was something Daniel did not have. He heard them before he saw them. Heavy footsteps. Many of them. Moving through the forest toward his ship. The cub heard them too. Its ears went up and it made a different sound, a sharp yip that might have been a call for help. Daniel picked up the cub and held it close. He walked to the hatch and looked out. 12 Rathani warriors stood at the edge of the clearing. They were tall, 7 feet at least, and their silver-blue fur made them look like ghosts in the morning light. Each one carried a weapon, blades and spears that gleamed in the sun. Their leader stepped forward. He was the largest of them, and his face was covered in old scars. His eyes found Daniel. Then they found the cub in Daniel's arms. The leader raised his blade. Daniel did not run. He did not drop the cub. He just stood there, holding the small creature against his chest, and waited for death to come. The scarred warrior stood 10 feet from Daniel. His blade was raised, ready to fall. Behind him, the other 11 warriors spread out in a half circle, blocking any path of escape. Not that Daniel planned to escape. He stood his ground, holding the cub against his chest, and looked directly into the warrior's eyes. Those eyes were golden, just like the cub's. But there was no warmth in them, only cold rage, only the promise of death. The warrior spoke. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. He spoke in his own language, a series of clicks and growls that Daniel could not understand. But the meaning was clear. Put down the cub. Step away. Face your death like the intruder you are. Daniel shook his head slowly. She was hurt. Her leg was broken. I helped her. The warrior did not understand his words either. But Daniel spoke anyway. He needed the warrior to hear his voice. He needed him to know that he was not afraid. The cub stirred in Daniel's arms. It looked at the warriors, then looked up at Daniel. It made that soft chirping sound, the one that meant trust. Then it pressed its small head against Daniel's chest and closed its eyes. The scarred warrior saw this. His blade wavered just for a moment. Something changed in his golden eyes. Confusion, maybe. He had expected the cub to cry out in fear. He had expected it to struggle against the human who held it. But the cub was not afraid. The cub was calm. The cub was comfortable. One of the other warriors spoke. He was younger, with smooth fur and no scars. His voice was sharp and angry. He pointed at Daniel with his spear. The meaning was clear. Kill him now. Why are we waiting? The scarred warrior growled something back. The young warrior stepped forward, but the scarred one raised a hand. Stop. Wait. Daniel watched this exchange. He did not understand the words, but he understood what was happening. The scarred warrior was the leader. He gave the orders, and for some reason, he was hesitating. Another warrior spoke, then another. Soon they were all talking at once, their voices rising and falling in heated debate. Some pointed at Daniel with anger. Others looked at the cub with confusion. The scarred warrior listened to all of them, his blade still raised, his eyes never leaving Daniel's face. The argument went on for several minutes. Daniel stood still, holding the cub, waiting. His arms were getting tired, his legs wanted to shake, but he did not move. He did not show weakness. Finally, the scarred warrior silenced the others with a loud growl. He lowered his blade, just a little. Then he stepped forward and stood directly in front of Daniel. Up close, the warrior was even more frightening. His scars were deep and old, marks of many battles. His teeth were sharp when he opened his mouth to speak. He said something in his language, then pointed at the cub. Daniel understood. The warrior wanted the cub. He looked down at the small creature in his arms. Its golden eyes opened and met his. It chirped softly, and Daniel felt a pain in his chest. He did not want to let go. In just one night, this small thing had become something important to him. Something worth protecting. But he was not here to fight. He was not here to steal. He had helped the cub because it needed help. Now its people were here. They could take care of it better than he could. Daniel knelt slowly. He set the cub down on the ground, keeping his hands visible so the warriors could see he meant no threat. The cub looked up at him with those big golden eyes. It made a small sound, almost like a question. Why are you putting me down? Go on, Daniel said softly. Go to your people. They will take care of you. He stood up and stepped back. The cub did not move. The scarred warrior stepped forward and reached for the cub, but the cub turned and snapped at his hand. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make the warrior pull back in surprise. The cub then turned and limped on 3 legs back to Daniel. It pressed itself against his ankle and chirped loudly. The warriors stared. Even the scarred leader seemed shocked. He said something, his voice low and confused. One of the other warriors answered, equally confused. Daniel bent down and picked up the cub again. It settled into his arms immediately, making that soft sound of contentment. It did not want to leave him. It had chosen him. The scarred warrior watched this. His expression was impossible to read. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the wind in the purple trees and the distant calls of alien birds. Then the warrior spoke again. His voice was different now, softer. He pointed at Daniel, then at the cub, then made a gesture with his hand. Come, follow. Daniel hesitated. This could be a trick. They could be leading him somewhere to kill him in private. But what choice did he have? He could not fight 12 warriors. He could not run faster than them. His only hope was to go with them and hope for the best. He nodded. Okay, I will follow. The warriors formed up around him. Not attacking, but not friendly either. They were an escort, a guard. Daniel walked in the center of their group carrying the cub as they moved into the purple forest. They walked for hours. The 2 suns rose higher, filling the forest with strange light. Daniel's legs grew tired. His arms ached from holding the cub, but he did not complain. He did not ask to rest. He just kept walking, one step at a time. The cub fell asleep in his arms. It trusted him completely. Even surrounded by its own people, it chose to sleep in the arms of the human who had helped it. Daniel did not know what that meant, but he felt it was important. Near midday, they reached their destination, a tree. But not just any tree. This tree was so large that Daniel could not see where it ended. Its trunk was wider than a city block. Its branches reached up into the clouds. It was ancient and alive and more beautiful than anything Daniel had ever seen. The warriors led him to an opening in the trunk, a doorway carved into the living wood. Inside, he could see stairs leading up into darkness. The scarred warrior stopped and turned to face Daniel. He looked at the cub, then at Daniel's face. His golden eyes were hard to read, but they were not angry anymore. There was something else there now. Respect, maybe? Or at least curiosity. He said a single word and pointed up the stairs. Daniel understood. He was being taken to someone important. Someone who would decide his fate. A leader. A judge. Someone with the power of life and death. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The cub chirped softly and pressed closer to his chest. Stay with me, little one, Daniel whispered. We will face this together. He began to climb the stairs. The stairs went up and up, winding through the heart of the great tree. The walls were smooth wood, warm to the touch, and small lights glowed from cracks in the bark. Daniel climbed for what felt like forever. His legs burned. His breath came hard. But he did not stop. The cub had woken up during the climb. It watched everything with curious golden eyes, its small head turning left and right. It seemed to know this place. This was home. Finally, the stairs ended at a large round chamber. The ceiling was so high that Daniel could barely see it. The walls curved outward like the inside of a bowl. And sitting in a circle around the edge of the chamber were the oldest Verthani Daniel had ever seen. There were 12 of them. Their fur was not silver blue like the warriors, but pale gray and white with age. Their faces were lined with deep wrinkles. Their eyes, those same golden eyes, were heavy with wisdom and time. These were the elders, the council. The ones who made the laws and judged those who broke them. In the center of their circle was an empty space. Daniel understood that he was meant to stand there. He walked forward on tired legs and stopped in the middle of the chamber. The cub was still in his arms, still calm, still trusting. The elders looked at him. Some with anger, some with confusion, some with expressions Daniel could not read at all. They spoke among themselves in their clicking language, voices rising and falling like music. Then one of them stood up. She was the oldest of them all. Her fur was pure white, and her golden eyes held more years than Daniel could count. She moved slowly, carefully, like each step was precious. But there was strength in her. Daniel could see it in the way she held herself. This was not a weak old woman. This was a leader. She stopped a few feet from Daniel and looked at him. Then she looked at the cub. Her eyes softened just a little when she saw the small creature nestled against his chest. Then she spoke. To Daniel's shock, she spoke in his language. Her accent was thick and strange, but the words were clear. "You are human," she said. Daniel nodded. "Yes. You crashed on our sacred moon. You entered our breeding ground without permission. You touched one of our young." She paused. "You know what our law says about this?" Daniel nodded again. "You will kill me." The old female tilted her head. "Yes, that is our law. It has been our law for 1,000 generations. Any outsider who comes near our young must die. This law has protected our children from slavers and killers and those who would use them as tools. This law has kept our people safe." She moved closer. Her eyes were fixed on his face. "But you did something no outsider has ever done before. You did not steal this cub. You did not hurt it. You helped it. You set its broken leg. You gave it water and food. You protected it through the night." She reached out and touched the cub's head gently. The cub chirped and leaned into her hand, but it did not leave Daniel's arms. It stayed right where it was. "Our warriors told me what they saw," the old female continued. "They told me that this cub, Kyrith, refused to leave you. They tried to take her from you, and she snapped at them. She chose you. She chose the human who saved her life." Daniel looked down at the cub. Kyrith. Now he knew her name. "Why?" the old female asked. "Why did you help her? You knew what it would cost you. You knew you would die. Why did you still help her?" Daniel thought about the question. He thought about his mother and her simple words. He thought about the sound of Kyrith's cries in the forest. He thought about the moment when he had to choose between his own life and doing what was right. "Because she was hurt," he said simply. "Because she was alone and in pain. Because helping her was the right thing to do." The old female studied his face for a long time. The other elders were silent, watching, waiting. "You humans," she said at last. "You are strange. You are soft. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. You are weak compared to us. But you do things that we cannot understand. You risk your lives for creatures you do not know. You show kindness to those who have no claim on you. You believe that some things matter more than survival." She turned and walked back to her seat. When she faced him again, her expression had changed. The hardness was still there, but something else was mixed with it. Wonder, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. "Our law was made to protect our children from those who would harm them," she said. "But you did not harm. You healed. You protected. You showed Kyrith a kindness that our own law would punish with death." She looked around at the other elders. "I ask you all to consider this. For 1,000 generations, we have killed any outsider who touched our young. We did this because every outsider who touched our young did so to hurt them. Slavers stole them. Hunters killed them. Enemies used them as hostages. We learned to trust no one outside our clans," she pointed at Daniel. "But this human is different. He found Kyrith trapped and injured. He could have walked away. He could have left her to die. Instead, he risked his own death to save her life. He did not know her. He owed her nothing. But he helped her anyway." She paused. "I believe our law is wrong." The chamber erupted in noise. Elders shouted at each other. Some stood up, waving their arms. Some slammed their hands on their seats. The sound was overwhelming, and Daniel had to fight the urge to cover his ears. Kyrith pressed closer to him. She was scared by all the noise. Daniel stroked her fur gently. "It is okay," he whispered. "I am here." The debate raged for hours. Daniel stood in the center of it all, holding Kyrith, watching the elders argue about his fate. He did not understand most of what they said, but he could tell that they were deeply divided. Some wanted him dead, some wanted to spare him, and some seemed unsure what to think. The white-furred female let them argue. She sat in her seat and watched, saying nothing. But Daniel noticed that she was studying him the whole time, watching how he held Kyrith, watching how he stayed calm even when his life hung in the balance. Finally, when the suns began to set and the chamber grew dark, she raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. She stood up one more time and walked to stand before Daniel. "I am Varethi," she said. "I am the eldest of the elders. My voice carries the weight of 100 generations. And I have made my decision." She looked at the other elders. "We will vote. Each elder will speak their choice. And whatever the council decides, that will be the law." She turned back to Daniel. Her golden eyes were calm but kind. "May your strange human heart find the peace it deserves, whatever happens next." Daniel nodded. "Thank you." Then the voting began. One by one, the elders spoke their choice. The first elder stood. He was thin and bent with age, his fur more gray than white. He looked at Daniel with hard eyes. When he spoke, his voice was cold. "Death," Varethi translated. "He votes for the old law." The second elder stood. She was smaller than the first, with kind eyes. She looked at Kareth in Daniel's arms for a long moment before speaking. "Life," Varethi said. "She votes to spare you." And so it went. Elder after elder rose and spoke their choice. Some voted for death. Some voted for life. Daniel stood still and counted in his head. By the sixth vote, it was 3 against 3. Everything was perfectly balanced. Kirith seemed to sense the importance of what was happening. She stayed quiet and still in Daniel's arms, her golden eyes moving from elder to elder as they spoke. The 7th elder voted for death. The 8th voted for life. The 9th voted for death. Daniel's heart sank. 5 votes for death, 4 for life. Only 3 elders remained. The 10th elder stood. He was the youngest of the council, though still old by any measure. He looked at Daniel, then at Kyreth. Then he spoke a single word. "Life," Varethi translated. "He believes you deserve mercy." 5 against 5. 2 elders left. The 11th elder was ancient, even older than Varethi. He had to be helped to his feet by the elder beside him. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Death," Varethi said, and her voice was sad. "He cannot let go of the old ways." 6 votes for death. 5 for life. 1 elder remained. Varethi herself. She walked to the center of the chamber and stood beside Daniel. She looked up at the other elders, her white fur glowing in the dim light. "I have listened to this debate," she said. "I have heard the arguments on both sides. I understand why some of you want to keep the old law. It has protected us for so long. It has kept our children safe when no one else would protect them." She paused. "But I have also seen something today that I never expected to see. I have seen an outsider risk his life to save one of our young. Not for money, not for power, not for any gain at all. He did it simply because it was right." She looked at Daniel. Her golden eyes were soft. "Humans are strange creatures. They are small and weak compared to us. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no great strength. By all logic, they should not have survived in this galaxy, but they have survived. They have done more than survive. They have spread across the stars and made alliances with 100 species." She turned back to the council. "And now I understand why. It is not their weapons or their ships that make them strong. It is their hearts. They have something we do not have. They have the ability to care for strangers, to help those they do not know, to risk everything for beings who have no claim on them." She straightened her old back and spoke in a loud, clear voice. "My vote is for life. And more than that, my vote is to change the law." The chamber went silent. Even the elders who had voted for death seemed shocked. "We will add a new rule to our ancient law," Varethi continued. Any outsider who enters our breeding grounds will still face judgment. But if they have helped one of our young, if they have risked their own life to save one of our children, they will not be killed. They will be protected. They will be honored. They will be welcomed as friends of the clans. She looked at Daniel. We will call it the Moore exception, after the human who showed us that not all outsiders are enemies. The vote was tied. 6 for death, 6 for life. But Varethi was the eldest. Her voice carried the most weight, and when she spoke for change, the others listened. One by one, the elders who had voted for death stood up. One by one, they changed their votes. Not because they were forced to, but because they saw the truth in Varethi's words. They saw the cub who refused to leave the human's arms. They saw the bandage on her leg, made with human medicine and human care. They saw something new. When the final vote was counted, it was 12 for life, 0 for death. The law was changed. Daniel stood in the center of the chamber, hardly able to believe what had just happened. He was not going to die. He was going to live. And more than that, he had changed something. He had made a difference. Kirith chirped happily in his arms, as if she understood what had happened. Varethi walked to Daniel and placed her old hand on his shoulder. You are now a friend of the clans, she said. Kirith is your bond sister under our custom. Her family is your family. Her protection is your duty and your right. You will always be welcome among us. Daniel felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried in years, but now he could not stop himself. Thank you, he said. I do not know what to say. I just did what anyone would do. Varethi smiled, showing her old teeth. That is where you are wrong, human. Not anyone would do what you did. Only someone special. Only someone with a heart big enough to hold the pain of strangers. The next morning, the human rescue ship arrived. It had taken them 3 days to find Daniel's crash site. When they landed in the clearing, they expected to find a body. Instead, they found Daniel walking out of the forest with a dozen Vrithani warriors at his back. The captain of the rescue ship was named Katie Nguyen. She was a veteran of 20 years in space, and she thought she had seen everything, but she had never seen anything like this. She stepped off the ship and stared at Daniel. We thought you were dead, she said. We were ready to write you off and apologize to the Vrithani for the territorial violation. Daniel smiled. Plans changed, Kirith chirped from his shoulder. She was perched there now, her splinted leg hanging carefully to one side. She looked at Katie with curious golden eyes. Is that a Vrithani cub? Katie asked, her voice barely a whisper. Her name is Kirith, Daniel said. She is my bond sister. Katie looked at the warriors behind Daniel. They stood tall and proud, their weapons at their sides. But they were not threatening. They were an honor guard. I think you need to tell me what happened here, Katie said. It is a long story, Daniel said. But the short version is this. I helped a cub, and everything changed. Word of what happened spread through the galaxy in the weeks that followed. Other species heard about the human who had walked into a Vrithani breeding ground and walked out alive. They heard about the ancient law that had been changed because of one man's kindness. They heard about the Moore exception. And they began to ask questions. If the Vrithani, the most protective species in known space, had rewritten their oldest law for a human, what did that say about humanity? The answer was simple. Humans were strange. They helped injured cubs even when it meant their own death. They showed kindness to creatures that had no claim on them. They believed that some things mattered more than survival. And sometimes, just sometimes, that belief changed everything. Daniel went on to become an ambassador between humanity and the Vrithani. Kirith stayed with him always, growing from a small cub into a strong adult. She never forgot the human who had saved her life, and Daniel never forgot the lesson he had learned on that purple moon. Do the right thing. Always. No matter what it costs. Because kindness, in the end, is the most powerful force in the universe.